Hello all. So today we are finishing up chapter 4 and talking about the more recent developments. So here we go. So physical education, exercise science, and sport currently is in one of its most exciting eras. So many changes have occurred since 1970 that capture them all in such a limited space is difficult. These changes include the disciplinary movement, the quest for identity, the emergence of the disciplines, new directions in professional preparation, and increased career opportunities in this dynamic field. The national emphasis on disease prevention and health promotion, and increasing evidence of the positive relationships between physical activity and health have stimulated participation by people of all ages and created new opportunities within the realm of physical education, exercise science, and sport. One of the most significant changes in society during these past decades is the increased emphasis on disease prevention and health promotion. As disease prevention and health promotion initiatives grew, greater attention was directed at helping individuals improve their health by incorporating health-enhancing behaviors into their lifestyle. At this time, there was an emerging consensus of epidemiologists, experts in exercise science, and health professionals, as well as a growing body of evidence that supported the contribution of physical activity to health and well-being. Over the past 5 decades, 5 national health reports titled Healthy People 1979, 1980, 1990, 2000, 2010, and now 2020 have clearly identified the contribution that physical activity could make to well-being. These reports established specific objectives to be accomplished by physical education, exercise science, and sport, the attainment of which would lead to the improvement of the health of the nation. The landmark 1996 report, Physical Activity and Health, a report of the Surgeon General, and most recently the 2010 Surgeon General's Vision for a Healthy and Fit Nation, affirmed the contribution of physical activity to the attainment and maintenance of health. These reports on physical activity and health emphasize that all Americans can substantially improve their health and quality of life by including moderate to vigorous physical activity in their daily lives. The goal of these national calls to action is to improve the health of the nation. This offers a tremendous challenge to all members of our field. Sport participation at all levels and within all segments of the population has exploded. Legislation has increased opportunities for girls and women in sports and for people with disabilities. The Olympics have experienced a period of growth, withstood politicization, and emerged as a commercial venture of huge proportions. Technology has contributed in many ways to the continued growth of physical education, exercise science, and sport. Public health initiatives since 1970 have emphasized the critical role that school physical education programs can play in helping children acquire the skills, knowledge, and habits to be active throughout their lives. These decades have been marked by efforts to promote physical education and advocacy on behalf of quality physical education in the schools. In 1971, the Physical Education Public Information Project, or PEPI, was begun to inform the public educators and policymakers about the value of physical education. PEPI emphasized that physical education is health insurance. In 1986, the National Association for Sport and Physical Education, or NASPE, an association of AFER, defined the characteristics of a physically educated person. In 1995 and again in 2004, NASPE published Moving into the Future, National Standards for Physical Education, a Guide to Content and Assessment. For the first time in the United States, this document offered physical educators a national framework to guide the development of their physical education curriculums. In 2014, SHAPE America developed the 3rd edition of the National Standards for Physical Education, including grade-level outcomes for the first time. Periodic surveys such as SHAPE America's, SHAPE of the Nation, and the CDC's Youth Risk Behavior Surveillance System provide information about the status of physical education in the nation's schools. The first Shape of the Nation survey, conducted in 1987, revealed that only one state, Illinois, required daily physical education for kindergarten through 12th grade. In 2015, only Oregon and the District of Columbia met the national recommendations for weekly time and physical education at the elementary and middle school levels. Only 24 states require physical education to be included in students' grade point average. 30 states allow exemptions and waivers for physical education time or credit requirements, and 31 states permit the substitution of other activities for physical education class and or requirements for graduation. The fitness movement began as a trend in the 1970s and has continued to expand. Many people of all ages lead an active lifestyle, engaging in activities such as jogging, biking, walking, and weight training, to an extent never before seen. While it may appear that America is an active nation, studies report that too many adults engage in no physical activity during their leisure time. Recent studies have also raised alarms regarding the growing percentage of children, youth, and adults who are overweight and obese. While more individuals of all ages are participating in physical activities, much more needs to be done to encourage people to be active and to eat healthy. Starting in the 1970s, there was a gradual shift from an emphasis on performance-related fitness to one on health-related fitness. During the 1970s and 80s, as the emphasis on disease prevention and health promotion grew, the contribution of fitness to health gained increased recognition. Physical inactivity was linked to disease. To improve health, it was recommended that people engage in fitness activities on a regular basis. Participation in sport has experienced phenomenal growth at all levels since the 1970s. Participation by children and youth involved in organized sport activities outside the school setting, under the guidance of public or private agencies, has grown tremendously. It is estimated that children and youth sports involve millions of children and adult volunteer coaches. Additionally, thousands of paid coaches work primarily in private sports clubs with elite performers. Participation in interscholastic sport has grown from 3,932 boys and girls in 1971 to over 7.8 million in 2014-2015. Recently, there has been an increased trend toward specialization in a sport at an early age. A youth may play on the school soccer team in the fall, participate in an indoor soccer recreational league in the winter, and play spring soccer and then attend soccer camp in the summer. Some school districts facing budgetary difficulties have instituted pay-to-play plans in which athletes are charged fees to participate. Considerable concern has been raised that these fees will limit participation and disproportionately affect students from lower socioeconomic groups. The National Federation of State High School Associations opposes this practice, stating that sports have educational value and therefore students should have access to them as part of their educational experience. At the collegiate level, participation in sport has increased as well. The National Collegiate Athletic Association, or NCAA, reported that during the 1989 and 1990 academic year, 266,268 collegians participated in intercollegiate athletics. In 2013-14, over 560,000 collegians participated. 1,000 more collegiate athletes participate at over 300 schools that are members of the National Association of Intercollegiate Athletes, or NAIA, and at over 460 community colleges that are governed by the National Junior College Athletic Association. Moreover, during this time, sport has emerged as a big business in NCAA Division I schools. Media revenues for television, football, and basketball games and tournaments have reached millions of dollars. For example, the major NCAA football bowl subdivision, or FBS football schools, shared more than $100 million in revenue for the bowl games. Now, things may be changing in this COVID-19 post-era, and so it'll be interesting to see what will happen with collegiate sport and professional sport, as well as youth sport, in the next year or so. Participation in recreational leagues such as softball, soccer, and volleyball, and road races by adults has increased enormously as well. Master's programs in swimming and track and field, the National Senior Games, the National Olympic Festival, and state games such as the Empire State Games engage people of all ages and various levels of competition in a multitude of sports. Professional sports have also increased during this period of time. Since the 1970s, expansion has resulted in addition of many professional hockey, football, basketball, soccer, and baseball teams. Salaries of professionals have increased dramatically as well. Multi-million-dollar contracts have become increasingly common. Since the 1970s, participation by girls and women in sports has grown rapidly. The dramatic increase in participation has enhanced by the changing attitudes toward women in society and by the passage of Title IX of the Education Amendments of 1972. The Title IX law specifically states, "No person in the United States shall, on the basis of sex, be excluded from participation in, or be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any educational law, program, or activity receiving federal financial assistance." Over the past 42 years, this educational law has had wide-ranging effects on physical education and athletic programs in the United States. One major reason Title IX came into existence was to ensure that girls and women received the same or equal rights as boys and men. Testimony before congressional committees prior to the enactment of this legislation showed that girls and women were being discriminated against in many educational programs, including physical education and athletics. In recent years, many judicial decisions and legislative acts have supported the rights of individuals with disabilities to have the same opportunities as other individuals. These mandates have resulted in significant changes in conduct of physical education and athletic programs for individuals with disabilities. The rights of people with disabilities in programs for which schools and other sponsoring organizations receive federal funds were guaranteed by Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. The most widely known law related to education for people with disabilities is the Education of All Handicapped Children Act of 1975. This law provided a free and appropriate education for children aged 3 to 21. Section 121A.307 of the regulations stated that physical education services were to be made available to every child with a disability. All educational services are to be provided for students with disabilities in the least restrictive environment. In essence, this means that a child with a disability is placed in a special class or mainstreamed into a regular class or moved between the two environments as dictated by his or her abilities and capabilities. Furthermore, the school assumes the responsibility of providing the necessary adjunct services to ensure that students with disabilities perform to their optimum capacity, whether they are integrated into a regular program or left in a special class. Each child with disabilities must have an individualized educational plan or IEP. In 1996, the Centennial Olympic Games were held in Atlanta, Georgia. In the 100 years since their rebirth in 1896, the Olympics have evolved into an event of global magnitude. In the 1896 Olympics held in Athens, 311 athletes from 11 nations competed. In Atlanta, 10,750 athletes from 197 nations competed. The modern Olympic Games, organized originally with the idealistic goal of fostering understanding among the people of the world, have become an instrument for political goals. Ideological differences have exerted a profound influence on the conduct of the Games. The 1936 Olympic Summer Games held in Berlin were used by Adolf Hitler to further the Nazi ideology of Aryan supremacy. The Germans invested considerable resources in order to stage the most spectacular Olympics in history and to train the German athletes, all of whom typified the Nazi Aryan ideal. The German athletes won 89 medals, more than any other country in the Games. The United States won 66 medals, 4 by the African-American athlete Jesse Owens, who set 3 world and Olympic records. Owens' phenomenal performance refuted the Nazi theory of Aryan supremacy. The 1972 Munich Olympics were marked by terrorism. 8 armed Arab guerrillas entered the Olympic Village complex occupied by the Israelis. A day later, 11 Israelis, 5 terrorists, and 1 German policeman were dead. Millions of people around the world mourned the slain athletes. After a memorial ceremony, the Munich Olympics continued. Social and political issues led to boycotts at the 1976 Olympics in Montreal over the issue of representation of China and the issue of apartheid. The United States led a boycott of the 1980 Summer Olympics in Moscow and protested the Soviet Union's invasion of Afghanistan. The Soviet Union, in turn, led a boycott of the 1984 Summer Olympics in Los Angeles, claiming that the United States had to adhere to the Olympic ideals. The 1988 Summer Olympics in Seoul, Korea, saw Americans and Soviets competing. Canadian sprint Ben Johnson tested positive for steroid use after winning the 100 meters, and American Carl Lewis was then awarded the gold medal. Several monumental events in the early 1990s, such as the collapse of the Berlin Wall, the Germans competed and the Soviet Union and had significant impact on the world in the Olympics. In 1992, the Germans competed in Barcelona as a unified team, and athletes from the former Soviet Union competed as part of the Commonwealth of Independent States. South Africa competed for the first time in decades, and the Baltic states participated as independent countries for the first time since World War II. As more countries began to be more open about paying their athletes for their performances, the issue of amateurism became a moot point. Professional athletes began to participate in the games in increased numbers. Public attention was focused on the United States basketball dream team, which largely comprised professionals such as Michael Jordan, David Robinson, and Larry Bird. Growing commercialism and concern about the use of drugs continued. The Winter Games also flourished during this time, mirroring the changes seen in the Summer Games. In the early 1990s, the International Olympic Committee voted to stagger the Winter and Summer Games in a 2-year rotation instead of a 4-year rotation. This started with the 1994 Winter Games in Lillehammer, Norway. It was believed that given the high degree of public interest in Olympics, the public would embrace this change. There would also be an economic benefit to the International Olympic Committee if the Games were held every 2 years rather than every 4 years. So just some social justice talking points. Here we're finding professionals will need to be inclusive of individuals with special needs as they participate in physical education classes, as well as sport and physical activity events. More and more you are seeing programs for those that are just for people with special needs. There's a program, and it's called Camp Aranzazu, that is for kids with diseases like diabetes, the asthma, all kinds of different programs for them, and you're going to see more and more of that. Women athletes should receive equal pay to men athletes in all sports. This has become another contention point for many, especially in the light of our soccer team and how well they have done in the last year or so, and will continue to be a point until it's solved. Other issues moving towards the future: women's participation in sport will continue to rise at the interscholastic, intercollegiate, professional, and Olympic levels, and individuals with special needs will be provided increased opportunities to participate in physical education in the sporting realm and in physical activity events. I see that as being probably one of the biggest fields coming out of all of this, and that creating opportunities for those with special needs. Disciplines such as exercise science, sports management, and sports medicine / athletic training will continue to grow and evolve, providing increased career opportunities for many individuals. So history provides the foundation for the field of physical education, exercise science, and sport. Many of our programs and activities today have been shaped by our heritage. Studying history also provides an appreciation for other cultures and the role of physical activity in these societies. And that states that history tends to repeat itself. Recurring themes are apparent throughout the history of physical education, exercise science, and sport. For example, wars frequently served as the impetus for societies to intensify their physical education program or to justify its existence. Physical fitness was promoted among the populace to prepare for these war efforts. However, studying history allows us to understand more fully many of the changes that have occurred in our field. The impact of different philosophies on the content and structure of physical education, exercise science, and sport programs, and changes in the nature and importance of objectives can be discerned throughout the years. It is important to be aware of the events that served as catalysts and deterrents to the growth of physical education, exercise science, and sport. The recent history of physical education, exercise science, and sport reveals many changes. Since the 1970s, the growth of the disciplines, the emphasis on disease prevention and health promotion, changes in school physical education, the fitness movement, and emphasis on physical activity, as well as the phenomenal growth of sports, have contributed greatly to our field. By understanding the history of physical education, exercise science, and sport, a professional can better understand the nature of the field, appreciate the significant developments of today, and project the trends for the future. There's a lot of things that are going on right now with the coronavirus and things like that are going to change the way we do things in the future. And it will be interesting to see what happens with it all. I believe there's going to be more opportunity for you guys in a gamut of fields, careers. It's important that you stay open to opportunities, and it's not everybody was supposed to be a physical therapist, and that's really okay. But go out and find what your passion is and make it work for you. All right, guys. Hey, I hope you have a great day today. We will be talking about Chapter 5, which is motor behavior, next. I look forward to talking to you then. Have a great day.